Good morning and welcome to America's spaceport here in Florida. This is a live look at Space Launch Complex 40 at the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station, where Crew-9 is in the process of suiting up for their mission. Today's T0 is 1:17 and 21 seconds p.m. Eastern Time. That's when a Dragon spacecraft sitting on top of a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket that you can see right there will launch to the International Space Station. Crew-9 is a continuation of regular crewed flights from U.S. soil to station as part of NASA's Commercial Crew Program. What a beautiful shot outside as we circle Launch Complex 40. I'm NASA's Daryl Nail, and this is the official launch broadcast of Crew-9. With me to help commentate to what's happening this morning is our special guest, NASA astronaut Zena Cardman. Zena, so good to have you here with us for what is hopefully going to be a great launch today.
Thank you, Daryl. Good morning, and good morning, everyone tuning in with us. I'm so grateful to be here.
And we are very grateful to have you here as you look at the launch pad now. Such a great shot by our flight operations team here at Kennedy. The mission today is a new configuration for NASA's Commercial Crew Program as we go back into the suit-up room. We are flying one commander and one mission specialist, a crew of 2 instead of a crew of 4 as originally planned. Now, the reason is to use those 2 empty seats to return astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. They flew up to the ISS in June, but remained on the International Space Station to prioritize their safe return. Meanwhile, their Starliner spacecraft, which had technical issues during a test flight, returned to Earth uncrewed earlier this month and returned successfully. Today, the crew's ride to space is the Dragon Freedom spacecraft, its 4th flight to space. As we look inside the suit-up room at the operations and checkout facility here at the Kennedy Space Center, we see both the astronaut and the cosmonaut sitting in their seats inside the suit-up facility. They've got their suits on, and now, Zena, of course, it's time to check them out.
That's right, Daryl. This is the first time that the crew have gotten in their suits on launch day. Of course, this is not the first time they've been in their suits. We spend a lot of time training and practicing in these suits so that we are ready to go on launch day. But this is the first of multiple checkouts of the suits that will actually take them to the International Space Station. It's great to see.
You can tell they're a little puffed up. When the helmet goes above the chin and the mouth area, you know that they're being pressurized, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, we're doing leak checks in these seats, and so it's great to see Nick Hague and Aleksandr Gorbunov here in suits that are looking good. When they pressurize, they get a little bit stiffer. They're actually about the same pressure as a volleyball.
Oh, interesting. I
Fun
didn't know
fact,
that.
yeah.
That's a nice little factoid.
Yeah.
All right, as you look here at Commander Nick Hague, U.S. Space Force Colonel Nick Hague is your Crew-9 commander. He was selected by NASA as an astronaut in 2013. This will be his 2nd space flight to the International Space Station. In 2018, he and his Soyuz crewmate experienced a catastrophic rocket booster malfunction after launch. They were forced to abort, but landed safely. 5 months later, Hague launched on another Soyuz and served as flight engineer for expeditions 59 and 60, and of course, a safe mission to the ISS. He spent a total of 203 days in space and performed 3 spacewalks. The Kansas native is a test pilot and a distinguished graduate of the United States Air Force Academy. Nick spent 5 months in Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom. He voluntarily transferred from the United States Air Force to the Space Force in 2021 and is an active colonel. His wife, Katie, is a retired U.S. Air Force colonel, and they have 2 sons. Let's talk a little bit now about his fellow crew member, Hague's fellow crew member, talking about Aleksandr Gorbunov. This is mission specialist Aleksandr Gorbunov's first time going to space. He studied engineering with qualifications in spacecraft in upper stages from the Moscow Aviation Institute. Gorbunov graduated from the military department with a specialty in operation and repair of aircraft, helicopters, and aircraft engines. Before his cosmonaut selection in 2018, he worked as an engineer for a rocket space corporation and helped support cargo spacecraft launches from the Baikonur Cosmodrome.
That's exactly right. It's great to see Aleksandr looking good in his suit today. He has been an incredible asset to the team, Crew-9. I'm so grateful that I got to spend the last 18 months training with him and with Nick. They are both flying today in roles that are slightly different than the ones they originally trained for, but they are both ready to step up.
And talk a little bit about that, Zena. Initially, he was trained as pilot. Now he's in the commander position, but he also has to cover some of the responsibilities of the pilot, right? Because Gorbunov is still mission specialist, though he's also upped his level of ability for this mission as well.
Yeah, certainly. It is an unusual circumstance. So the mindset for today is that Nick Hague is the commander, and we're referring to it as a single-seat commander. So he will be in charge of the vehicle, taking over the commander role. It's a step up, certainly, from the pilot role, but something that he's well trained to do. And the difference between transitioning from the pilot to the commander role is less of a difference than it would be to transition from mission specialist to pilot. And we simply did not have enough time to complete all of that training, although Alex is an incredible crewmate and a very capable cosmonaut. And so Alex will be flying in the seat that Nick was physically training in. Nick will be flying in the seat that I was physically training in. But they will both be sharing these duties. Alex will be backing up Nick in a lot of the duties, but Nick will be the commander of the spacecraft.
Zena, how long does it take for crews to train together for a launch, and what does that training entail?
Yeah, so as a crew, we are training for about 18 months together, and that training includes a lot of training in Hawthorne. As you see pictured here, this is Nick and Alex in Hawthorne, California, and we also have some simulators in Houston, Texas, training in the Dragon capsule itself. The large majority of our time is spent training for the International Space Station as opposed to our launch vehicle. But the launch vehicle is something that we don't train for until about the last 6 or 8 months of training before we get to the ISS. So it really takes a lot of work, a lot of practice, so that on launch day, everything is very familiar.
The other two astronauts who are not flying today but will technically become part of Crew-9 and Expedition 72 when Nick and Aleksandr arrive to the ISS are, of course, Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. Butch Wilmore, he has flown on 3 missions, performed 4 spacewalks, and flown in 3 spacecraft, Shuttle, Soyuz, and Starliner. And Suni, she has flown on 3 missions, performed 7 spacewalks, and also flown in 3 spacecraft, Shuttle, Soyuz, and Starliner. And so this is a tradition here. There's Shannon Walker with the 2 crew members laying out the rules to a card game. This is a tradition that happens before the crew can leave the suit-up room. Someone plays the crew. This someone is the case. It's Shannon Walker, the deputy astronaut chief. She'll play the commander and crew member, and they will play until the commander loses. That way, the team gets their bad luck out of the way and can now move on with nothing but good luck through launch.
That's exactly right. I think spaceflight in general is full of traditions, especially on launch day. This is one of them that is just a really fun part of it. It's also a great thing to do. We have a lot of buffer built into that suit-up timeline, and so I absolutely love that we get to do this tradition, get to take part in this tradition. The rules change a little bit, and so the chief or the deputy chief might make up something special specific to that crew. So you can imagine maybe the number 9 is going to feature heavily today or something like that. So the rules change a little bit every time. But yes, you're exactly right. The tradition is that we must play until the commander loses. So we'll see what happens. And yeah, it's great to see they're playing with a card deck that I actually made for them.
Oh, you did?
That's right.
Tell me about that.
It's, well, you know, I guess my last name is Cardman, and so it's, trying to live up to the name. But this is something that I've done now for crews that I work closely with. So I've worked closely in the past with Crew 4, Crew 5, now Crew 9. And it's a really fun way to send them off on their launch day. And it's been really neat to draw the crew members as the face cards, actually. So I've got...
Oh, that's cool.
Nick Hague as the king for each suit, and Aleksandr Gorbunov is the jack of each suit.
Any reason that you chose for those particular?
Well, you know, that just happened to...
Just work out that way.
Yeah, I followed my instinct there. For Crew 5, it was fun because they had Anna, Koichi, Josh, and then I made
so
Nicole
King, Jack,
the queen. Yeah, that's right. So their initials kind of lined up nicely with the face cards.
So do you happen to know, it looks like they're getting ready to start the game. Do you know what game they're going to play?
I don't know exactly the rules of today's game.
Well,
Only Shannon Walker knows
does.
right now,
Yeah.
and perhaps, hopefully, Nick and Alex as they're about to start playing.
She's been laying out the rules.
Yeah, it's fun to see them laughing with each other.
Yeah.
Must have been pretty funny. Yeah, this is something to me that just is really the human side of spaceflight. It's nice to see some familiar faces in the background there, some of the black SpaceX suits. Number 34 is Haley Esparza. She's the manager for all astronaut operations at SpaceX. And fun fact, she's been with every single crew to fly a Dragon since Bob and Doug.
Oh, how about that? Some great consistency there.
That's right,
I'm taking from the body language that Hague may have lost right out of the gate.
Great, we're good to go. Got a good feeling for today.
So that didn't fill a lot of time, but hey,
But
you
hey,
got the
good
result
omens.
that you
We'll
wanted,
take
right?
it. That's
Yeah.
right.
There you go.
Here we see the crew coming down the hallway. Oh my goodness.
Here they come. Crew 9 leaving the suit-up room and now on the move inside astronaut crew quarters.
This is a big moment, and there's so many people who have supported them in quarantine who are lined up in these hallways, wishing them well on their journey. You can see them waving goodbye as they get in these elevators.
Yep. Aleksandr Gorbunov on the right, Nick Hague on the left, stepping into the elevator with Shannon Walker.
That's right, and that poster that you see lining the walls of the elevator are signed by so many of the people who have supported this mission here at KSC. It's really humbling to see those posters as you step into those elevators.
A very nice touch and a thumbs up as the elevator doors close. Now they're headed down to the first floor, and as they do so, since we're talking pre-launch traditions, and we had a few of them, here's another one. Both Nick and Aleksandr signing their mission patch inside crew quarters. The patch shows, of course, the trail of a rocket launching, and you can see a Falcon 9 in there with the number 9 on its beak, along with a crescent moon as its eye. That's a nod to the Falcon 9 rocket in the patch. And we'll have much more on this mission patch with a deeper dive into the design coming up later in the broadcast, which, you know, Zena, your team, when it was your team, all contributed to the design of this patch.
That's right, yes. So this is a patch that I have so much affinity for, and I love the design. Nick and Alex will represent it well today.
There they are. Nick Hague, commander of Crew 9, with his crewmate, Aleksandr Gorbunov.
It's a big moment. Family and friends seeing their crew members
This way
in
to
their
space.
suit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll have a chance here to say a few words with those who are closest to them.
Standing at a distance, of course, because the astronauts are quarantined for 2
That's
weeks
right, yeah.
prior to liftoff.
And their closest members of the family have been quarantining with them, but as we are actually getting ready to get on the rocket, we are taking all of the precautions possible.
And now they are getting into the Tesla. And as Zena said, the doors will close, the windows will open, and they'll have a few more moments with their
That's
family
right.
and loved ones.
You can see them hooking back up to that cooling umbilical, connected to their little personal briefcases. Get them some air on their way to the launch pad.
Switching from the handheld to the in-car system, right?
The handheld system is actually in the back behind their seats.
So it's all part of it. Okay.
Yeah, but they ditch the little cooling suitcase as they walk out, just less to carry.
Gotcha. And they are off on their way to Space Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. You can see the crew driving away from the Neil A. Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building, and this will begin a roughly 20-minute drive with a full security escort across NASA's Kennedy Space Center, including the Vehicle Assembly Building. And there they are, the onboard camera. T-minus 3 hours and 9 minutes, and there you see the access road as we're going towards Launch Complex 40. But this is a wider shot of Slick 40.
It's a beautiful shot.
It is a smaller footprint than 39A. Of course, 39A, a very large NASA facility that has a very long flame trench. This one, a little shorter, a little smaller footprint, about the third of the total footprint. But all the hardware is there that's necessary for a successful spaceflight. And today, the first time that we'll have a crew launch from this launch pad. And a lot of work, about 2 years worth of work, went into getting this pad configured and outfitted with hardware that can support a crewed launch.
You can see them doing the quintessential SpaceX flight suit lean back.
There it is.
The suit is designed to be most comfortable when you're in the seated position, so that
Not staring up at a 200-foot tall rocket.
exactly. Yes,
This
not
is core
not exactly
on countdown.
ergonomic for
T-minus
these
3 hours. Crew have
operations,
arrived
but
at the pad on
I
time.
can't imagine standing at the foot of your own rocket and not stopping to take a look at it.
Isn't that something? What a view that we just saw there as they
No
were
kidding.
craning backwards. We call it the rocket recline.
The rocket recline. I love that.
And
Should
into
be a
the
dance
elevator
move.
they go.
There's Luke Delaney, number 43. You can tell by his red name tag. A little bit different than the SpaceX ninjas.
Yeah. And there's some important differences between this crew tower. This elevator takes the crew all the way up to the level of the crew access arm, as opposed to at 39A, they have to actually go up a few flight of stairs.
That's exactly right, which is no easy feat when you're in a suit like this. So quite nice to just go all the way direct in your elevator.
Yeah. Direct flight.
Mm-hmm.
And the crew access arm at 39A actually, I understand, has an incline. So there's a little kind of coming up.
Yeah, that's right. It's a little bit different than 39A.
And here they come. Commander Nick Hague and mission specialist Aleksandr Gorbunov walking the crew access arm towards their Dragon Freedom capsule.
They are all smiles, and I can understand why.
With phenomenal views to either side of them, walking confidently and certainly anticipating these next few moments where they'll get into the spacecraft and get seated and strapped in.
There's Katie Bishop, who is in charge of today's operations here at the Cape as the closeout lead for the SpaceX team.
She handed a Sharpie to Aleksandr
This is
Gorbunov.
core on countdown. T-minus 2 hours, 56 minutes. Crew
Another one of
have
those
arrived
many
at the White
spaceflight
Room.
traditions, signing the wall of the White Room before you get in your Dragon capsule. And these will be the first signatures on the wall, unlike 39A, which
Yeah,
is
here
actually
we go.
full
They
of
get
signatures.
to be the first. Isn't that something?
Choose a good spot, Alex.
Yeah.
No
That's
pressure.
right.
Oh, yeah. Very nice.
Good. Boy, yeah. He went big, too.
There's only two of them. They can take up twice as much space as they would.
That's right. Nick is a lefty, apparently.
That's true. Strangely, the astronaut office has, I think, a higher percentage of lefties than most of the U.S. population.
How about that? Wonder why
Random
that is.
fact. I don't know. Who knows?
I
Don
try to
Pettit.
make some kind of observation of left hand, right brain, but I
Yeah.
don't know if that would work. But look at this.
What a
Taking in that view.
Yeah, absolutely. I love nighttime launches. Looks really spectacular as the rocket lifts off, but getting to see this view, taking in some final scenes of my favorite planet before getting in your rocket.
That's a great point. You walk down that crew access arm at night and it's just black, but during a day launch like we have today, I get beautiful vistas the entire way.
Absolutely.
Seat 2, Seat 3 for umbilical comm check.
Seat 2's got you loud and clear.
We got the loud and clear.
Core has you loud and clear. Umbilical comm checks are complete. Report when you are ready for seat rotation.
Freedom's ready for seat rotation.
Copy. We will report when initiating.
Starting off with some comm checks there, which is a routine part of this procedure.
That's right. That was the core. His name's Shiva in Hawthorne, California, talking to the crew just before seat rotation here.
Well, Shiva is a former SpaceX broadcaster.
Yes,
Dragon, we
yes.
are initiating seat rotation.
A good communicator.
Yeah, good to hear his
Ready.
voice again. I said former. He may be current. I apologize. But he has done launch broadcasts, so I recognize his voice.
Absolutely. And this is someone that Nick and Alex have had the chance to do simulations with in Hawthorne before. So it's nice to have a familiar person on the team.
And there they go, articulating the seats into launch position. Boots up. And now this gives them a vantage point to work those heads-up displays a lot better.
Yeah, that's right. With the seats in the reclined position, it's a lot easier to see and access those displays.
Freedom, seats are in the launch position.
Copies.
And also puts them in a much better configuration for the G-forces that they will feel on launch.
We're coming up on 1 hour and 59 minutes and counting.
Definitely see some clouds rolling through on the left-hand side there, but it's definitely worth giving it a try, just in case we get that
Dragon
launch.
SpaceX for post-ingress briefing.
Good window of weather at launch time 0.
Freedom's with you.
Dragon, so good news is we've got a healthy pad, Dragon is healthy, and Falcon is looking good. The story remains weather, as previously briefed. We're watching radar data in real time. Currently, we'd be no-go to launch, but we think there's a real shot of getting a clearing in the weather around T-0, and the Ascent weather continues to look good, so we've got a chance of going to space today. We'll check in as we have more updates. How copy?
Freedom copies. Good pad, good vehicle, and you're saying there's a chance with the weather. Outstanding.
So they just got their crew brief from SpaceX, and mostly good, except for the weather. But as Nick Hague just pointed to the positive side of things,
So you're
sounds
saying
like
there's a chance.
That's right, exactly.
That's right.
Well, from that left-hand side, you can certainly see it. It's a small storm with rain on the left part of the screen, and a little more of a clearing area on the right hand. That is exactly how it is on radar.
Yep, we've got some patchy weather rolling through, but it sounds like the vehicle itself is in great shape. That launch countdown going really smoothly. Hatch closure right on time with a good leak check. The suits are in a good configuration. Crew members are doing well. So we'll just keep hoping for a good weather window just under 2 hours from now. And of course, we'll have a big decision point before we start to put fuel on board the rocket, because that's something that's harder to back away from once we start that process. So we really want to commit thinking that there is a very good positive shot of launching today before we start fueling the rocket.
And
SpaceX Freedom, Section 5, 5.4, we're go for launch.
SpaceX copies. Crew are ready for launch.
Some very exciting words to hear from Commander Nick Hague.
they are ready to go. Is the weather ready to go? We'll find that out in just a bit. They're going to make that decision, as you mentioned, about the weather before they start fueling the rocket, because once they do that, that locks it in at T-minus 35 minutes, and we're tanking the rocket at that point, and it's a pretty strong commitment at that point. As you can see on your screen, the radar is showing a storm that just moved offshore. That dumped some rain around the area, certainly on the launch pad. It didn't cause any harm. There were no problems with that. We can handle some rain on the rocket and on the launch pad. But what is more concerning is the stuff behind it. And from the satellite view, you can see that there is a plume of moisture that's developing in the southeastern part of the state of Florida and is moving its way upwards towards the northeast, directing over top of us. The idea, though, is, and what launch managers are hoping for, and certainly what the crew is hoping for, is that in between the rain, the lightning, and those storm cells are some clear patches of sky. All they need is a 10 nautical mile stretch around the launch pad, and they can launch into space. That's what we're hoping for. We got our fingers crossed.
Yes, we sure do. But weather or not, the crew themselves are ready. You see what I did there?
I did. Good.
Dragon, have good news that the most of the concerning weather that we saw from earlier has either cleared the pad or is trending to clear. We are still watching some precipitation, and we are expecting our next cross-check at around the T-minus 45-minute mark. We'll let you know, along with the go-no-go for a prop load, what that weather looks like. How copy?
Freedom copies. Outstanding news. Thank you.
Highly trained and ready to go. T-minus 27 minutes and counting until liftoff. Let's head back out to NASA's Megan Cruz, who's joined now by NASA Administrator Bill Nelson and Deputy Administrator Pam Melroy.
I am, and it's so great to have them here at Florida always. You know, Administrator, the weather seems to be improving, so we're hopefully poised to send another 2 astronauts to the International Space Station, where, of course, you know, we've had American astronauts there continuously for over 20 years. Talk to us about how international partnerships really help with American ingenuity in space.
Well, first of all, it shows that we are looking beyond our borders, because we need our friends out there in other countries, and they have contributed greatly to this program. So, for example, on the big rocket that's going to go to the moon, it has the European support module from the European Space Agency. On our space station, there were originally about 15 international partners. Mm-hmm. And the number of countries that have used the space station is upwards of plus 40. So it is very much an international space program, and that's why it's called the International Space Station.
And actually, I'm going to ask you one more question, since we're talking about how the International Space Station is really a test bed for us as we return back to the moon, go farther to Mars. Let's talk about the Artemis 2 mission. Are there any updates for that as we look forward to sending 4 astronauts to orbit the moon?
Well, we are looking forward to the next flight, Artemis 2. The crew has been named. Reed Wiseman is the commander. They're going to do everything in preparation for the third Artemis, which will be the one that will go into lunar orbit, hook up with a SpaceX lander, and we will have then the first woman and the next man will walk on the moon.
Yeah, something exciting to look forward to. Now, Deputy Administrator, let's go back and talk about Crew-9 now. So, we're launching with 2 empty seats. That's so NASA astronauts Butch, Wilmore, and Suni Williams can return with Nick and Aleksandr early next year. What have Butch and Suni been able to accomplish on the ISS since they got there in June?
Well, the good news is having 2 extra sets of hands means more than 80 hours a week of extra work that can go into critical science, but also maintaining the station. So they have really contributed. Crew time is really precious on orbit. It feels like there's never enough. Yeah. But I would like to highlight a couple of experiments that they have been working on that I think are exciting, both because of how they impact future spaceflight, but also people here on Earth. So the plant management, a water management experiment, which is testing different techniques for transporting water to plants. Now, in space, in microgravity, water doesn't flow the same way without gravity to take care of it. But what's interesting is not only will that help us when we go to the moon and we go on to Mars, the ability to grow our own plants, but it also affects hydroponic systems here on Earth. The other experiment that I think is really significant is looking at taking some tissue cultures of the bone marrow that creates platelets, right? Very important in our blood system. And they're going to grow them in cultures. And part of that is to look at blood clotting and how those cells develop and how it might work in space.
Right.
But it also is going to help us understand blood clots better here in gravity by being able to compare the two.
I know,
so they are
great
doing
experiments.
very significant science.
Yeah, it's always so great to have veteran astronauts there as well.
Dragon SpaceX. Confirm crew displays are configured for launch.
And SpaceX Freedom, we can confirm our displays are configured for launch. I'd also like to take the opportunity to thank the entire team around the world for your hard work and dedication to get us to this point. Alex and I are ready and honored to represent you and everyone back on Earth. A huge thanks to our families and friends for your unwavering support, and to Crew-9, unbreakable. We go together.
SpaceX copies. You've proven you're ready, Dragon, and we're looking forward to seeing a full capsule at splashdown.
Dragon in countdown.
Now that we are in countdown, the flight computer on Dragon will switch to countdown mode. And we've also heard the flight termination system is armed.
Go for launch.
Freedom is go for launch.
That's our final go for launch. SpaceX reporting go and the crew reporting go.
30 seconds.
Standing by for the first launch of humans
9,
from Space Launch
8,
Complex 40.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Ignition full power. And liftoff of Crew-9. Go SpaceX, go Falcon, go NASA.
Liftoff of Crew-9 now soaring to the International Space Station.
Stage 1 Alpha.
Stage 1 propulsion is nominal. Copy, 1 Alpha.
Those 9 Merlin engines now providing 1.7 million pounds of thrust, propelling Falcon 9 and Crew-9 and continuing to get good calls from teams here on the ground.
Of course, these incredible views mean we are just a little bit past 30 minutes or 30 seconds into our 9th rotational crew mission.
Power range telemetry nominal.
On board Dragon and Falcon 9 with good callouts for mission control that everything is looking good. With that, stage 1 is throttling down to pass through max Q, which is the period of maximum dynamic pressure on Falcon 9 during ascent.
Max Q.
Confirmation of max Q.
vehicle is supersonic.
And that Falcon 9 is now traveling faster than the speed of sound.
Stage 1 throttle up.
Stage 1 Bravo.
Copy, 1 Bravo.
That call out for 1 Bravo means we're in the second and final abort mode for the first stage and continuing to get good performance.
MVAC chill is underway.
The crew is pulling just over 2 Gs at this point. Next up, we heard the engine chill on the second stage MVAC engine has begun, and then we will have MECO, or main engine cutoff, where the 9 engines on the first stage will cut off ahead of the first and the second stages, and then will separate from one another. Then that single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage will ignite and continue to carry Crew-9 to orbit while the first stage begins its journey back to Earth. Two minutes in, and the crew is now traveling over 2,600 miles per hour.
Stage 1 is throttling down.
Confirmation there from Mission Control that Stage 1 is throttling down as we prepare for main engine cutoff, followed shortly thereafter by stage separation and second engine start 1. You did hear Mission Control out that we are chilling our...
MECO.
There's confirmation of MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
Stage 2 Alpha.
MVAC ignition.
Copy, 2 Alpha.
With that, we have had confirmation of MECO, stage Sept, and the ignition of our MVAC engine on board stage 2. Our next major milestone is going to be the beginning of stage 1 boost back burn, which is expected in just a couple of seconds here. Of course, if you are just joining us, you've got views of our first stage on the left-hand side of your screen and of MVAC burning with our Crew-9 astronauts aboard up in space on the right-hand side of your screen.
Now we are coming up on 3 minutes and 20 seconds since liftoff today, traveling over 4,000 miles per hour and 76 miles downrange.
As our first stage makes its way back to Earth, we are tracking a landing attempt today at landing zone 1, not too far from where we lifted off in Cape Canaveral, Florida.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Confirmation there that both vehicles
Copies nominal trajectory.
are on nominal trajectories. Everything is looking good.
And we're getting good performance on that single Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. The crew's G-load dips right now. We are going to prepare to hit the separation event. Right now, they're about 1 G, which is about what we're used to experiencing on Earth. Crew is traveling almost 5,000 miles per hour now and 105 miles in altitude.
As we await the entry burn for our first stage, you are getting great views of it on the left-hand side of your screen. You can also see 2 of our titanium grid fins, which are the primary mechanical structures.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
Confirmation there from Mission Control that everything is still looking good.
Freedom copies, nominal trajectory.
Now, as I mentioned, those grid fins are the primary mechanical structures that we use to steer the booster back toward its landing zone, which today is LZ1 at Cape Canaveral. Just as kind of a quick point of reference, those grid fins are about 4 by 5 feet, so roughly the size of a coffee table. Getting our first tracking shots of the booster on its way back to Earth. Again, we are tracking the first stage on the left-hand side of your screen and MVAC up in space on the right.
And we do continue to hear good calls for that second stage. Again, we will see this continue to fire until close to 9 minutes into the flight, now at 5 minutes and 45 seconds since liftoff today. This is accelerating Dragon to more than 17,000.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal trajectory.
More good news.
Freedom copies, nominal trajectory.
This second stage is bringing Dragon to more than 17,000 miles per hour. That puts our crew in orbit. And the single Merlin vacuum engine can produce over 220,000 pounds of thrust in the vacuum of space.
Shannon.
That call.
Copy. Shannon.
That call is for Shannon, Ireland. That would be the abort zone if we were to abort at this point in the flight. However, we are continuing to hear good calls about Dragon's performance.
MVAC shutdown.
Confirmation of the Merlin vacuum engine shutting down.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
Good news there from
And Freedom
mission,
copies nominal orbital insertion.
from mission control and our crew that we have had nominal
Dragon,
orbit insertion.
SpaceX, launch escape system disarmed.
Freedom copies LES disarmed.
In 9 quick minutes, we now have 2 new crew members on their way to the International Space Station, having taken off from Space Launch Complex 40. The crew now being in a good or expected orbit. We'll continue to coast for these few minutes, and then we get our first views inside the capsule of our 2 crew members, Nick Hague and Aleksandr Gorbunov. They are just continuing to stay in their suits and in their seats during this dynamic portion of the flight. We're going to continue to coast for a few minutes after this second stage engine cutoff. This allows the rates and motion from that long burn to settle out.
Good views there looking up into Dragon's trunk, looking at the heat shield on the bottom of Dragon that Crew-9 will use when it returns home early next year.
Dragon, SpaceX, Dragon separation confirmed.
There,
And Freedom copies good separation.
there you heard from mission control both.
Dragon, Chief Engineer on countdown 1. Nick, Alex, on behalf of the entire team, we thank you for flying with Falcon 9 today and wish you a great mission.
And Freedom, this is Launch Director on countdown. On behalf of the entire SpaceX Launch and Recovery team, I'd like to extend our congratulations to the entire Crew-9 team. Zena, Stephanie, Nick, Alex, Butch, and Suni. It's an honor to be a part of this mission with all of you. I'd also like to give a shout out to the Falcon 9 Crew-9 combo. The best bundle in the league, baby. Godspeed, Crew-9.
Couldn't say it any better. Thank you guys. You know, we had the opportunity to meet so many people that were involved with the Falcon 9, and along the way was a sweet ride. I'm pretty sure my youngest son would say it was Sigma. Alex has got a few words to add as well.
All the entities that made this launch possible. Roscosmos, NASA, Big SpaceX. And thank you to my family and friends for their support. And also I'd like to express my gratitude to the hundreds of thousands of people around the world who are involved in the development of space technologies and to move humanity forward. Today's launch is also their accomplishment. Хочу сказать спасибо Роскосмосу, НАСА совместно со SpaceX за успешный запуск человека на орбиту, за очередной успешный запуск, и также поблагодарить родных и близких за поддержку. Спасибо.
Dragon SpaceX, we had a nominal nose cone opening. We do have just about 3 minutes here left in the ground station pass if you've got any fluffy stowaways you'd like to introduce.
And Freedom copies, good Draco checkout, good nose cone opening. And I just so happen to have a furry friend with me. Yeah, SpaceX Freedom. So yeah, I've got a little Falcon here. I love the package of Falcon 9, Crew-9. Yeah, we've got a Falcon on board with us. This one's a multi-flyer though. Was on my first flight with Alexei and I, and with Alexei and I and Christina, and now me and Alex. So say hello to Aurora.
And we see your Dragon. Actually, a good view right now because we're looking at the display cam. And Dragon delayed call, but nominal TCS reconfiguration as well as forward bulkhead Draco checkouts.
And Freedom copies, good TCS, good Draco checkouts.